Okay, so picture this. There's this molecule in your body. It's actually a simple gas, really. But it's so vital, it impacts, well, pretty much everything. How your blood flows, your stamina when you exercise, even like how sharp your thinking is.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely essential. And the catch is its natural production starts to slow down surprisingly early, maybe even in your late 20s.
Yeah, it does decline.
But, and this is the key part, you actually have quite a bit of influence over it.
And that crucial molecule is nitric oxide, or NO,
Yeah.
and the stack of sources we're digging into today, they go really deep into the science behind it, especially, how it connects to what you eat.
Right.
It's truly a cornerstone for cardiovascular health and just overall vitality.
Yeah, and what really jumped out at me from this material is just how much diet affects this specific molecule. Like some foods are basically turbochargers for NO production, while others seem to actively throw a wrench in the works, so to speak. So this deep dive is all about unpacking that science, the nitric oxide nutrition science, from these sources.
Exactly. And our mission here is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
We want to sift through all this material and pull out the most important actionable stuff.
Right.
Give you a clear sense of what NO is, why it really matters for your health, and, specifically how you can use diet and lifestyle choices to optimize your levels.
Okay, let's dive in.
Let's do it.
So let's start right there. For someone who, follows health topics but maybe hasn't done a deep dive specifically on this molecule, why is nitric oxide such a big deal? What is it actually doing?
Okay, so think of nitric oxide, NO, as a critical messenger molecule in your body. It gets made in a few places, but where it gets most of its fame is its action in your blood vessels.
Okay.
Its primary role. It's a vasodilator.
So it helps blood vessels relax, open up, kind of like unkinking a garden hose.
That's a perfect analogy, exactly. If your blood vessels are this network of hoses, NO is basically the signal telling them to relax, to dilate.
Right.
And that lets blood flow more easily, delivering oxygen, nutrients, efficiently all through your system to your heart, your brain, your muscles, every single cell.
And I'm guessing then, when NO levels are low, that free flow gets restricted somehow.
Precisely. Lower NO means less vasodilation. And that can potentially lead to restricted blood flow, which, the sources link to issues like elevated blood pressure, reduced exercise capacity.
Because muscles aren't getting enough oxygen.
Exactly. And even impacts on cognitive function, other vital processes. It's sometimes called the molecule of life, and for good reason. It's involved in just so many fundamental things.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
It really does sound foundational. So how does the body actually make this stuff? The sources mentioned two main ways, right? Two pathways.
That's a key insight from the material we looked at. Two primary routes. The first one is what we call the endogenous pathway. That's where your body converts an amino acid, L-arginine, into NO, using an enzyme called ENS, endothelial nitric oxide synthase. And this happens mostly in the lining of your blood vessels, the endothelium.
Okay, so one path is internal, using a building block the body has. What's the other one?
The second pathway, and this is the one that's really heavily influenced by what you eat, is the nitric oxide pathway. And this one's fascinating because it involves, bacteria.
Bacteria. Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting, isn't it?
It really is. So you eat dietary nitrates, which are found, abundantly in certain plants. Then these commensal bacteria, good bacteria, living mainly on the back of your tongue, they do this crucial step. They convert those nitrates into nitrites.
On your tongue?
Wow. And when you swallow those nitrites, they get into your stomach, into your blood, and in those more acidic environments, they can be converted further into nitric oxide.
So our mouth bacteria, our oral microbiome, plays a direct role in making this vital molecule from food we eat. That connects a few dots for me. So, okay, one path uses L-arginine and an enzyme. The other uses dietary nitrates and specific bacteria. Supporting both seems like, the smart approach the sources are pointing towards.
Absolutely. And that second pathway, the nitrate one, that's where certain foods become these incredibly powerful tools.
Right. Let's talk about those tools then. High up on the list, obviously, leafy greens. What makes them such a, powerhouse for nitric oxide?
Leafy greens are essentially natural nitrate reservoirs. They're just exceptionally rich in the dietary nitrates that fuel that second pathway we talked about.
Like spinach, arugula?
Exactly. Spinach, arugula, lettuce, kale, collard greens, Swiss chard, you name it.
And the sources seem to single out arugula, maybe, as being particularly high?
Yes, arugula can have over 250 milligrams of nitrate per 100 grams. That peppery kick it has, it's linked to these compounds. Spinach is usually a close second, often over 200 milligrams. And the key thing is these are natural nitrates. They come packaged with other beneficial things.
Which is a really important distinction from, say, the synthetic kind you find elsewhere.
Precisely. Plant nitrates come with antioxidants, vitamin C, polyphenols. They all work together synergistically. They actually support healthy NO function and protect against, negative outcomes. Synthetic nitrates, like the ones often added to processed meats, that's a whole different story.
And the research backs this up. The effect of the greens.
Oh, strongly, yeah. Studies consistently show that eating nitrate-rich greens can lead to significant drops in blood pressure.
Mm-hmm.
One piece of research highlighted, I think it was just 1 cup of spinach juice daily for a week, improved blood pressure, and even arterial stiffness. They also show benefits for exercise performance, making oxygen use more efficient.
So just adding spinach to a smoothie or, having arugula salad isn't just eating healthy in a vague sense. It's like a direct biological intervention targeting NO.
Pretty much, yeah.
And the sources did say, I think, that raw or maybe lightly cooked is best to keep those nitrates intact.
Correct. High heat can degrade them. Now, while leafy greens are maybe the quiet champions, beets often steal the spotlight.
Ah, yes, the famous beets. Especially in the sports world, right?
They are remarkably high in nitrates, too, often hitting similar levels to arugula, maybe 250, 300 milligrams per 100 grams sometimes. And beetroot juice specifically has been studied extensively for its ergogenic effects, performance enhancing.
Because more NO from the beets means better blood flow getting to the working muscles during exercise.
Exactly that. Better blood flow means more efficient oxygen delivery, better removal of waste products like lactate. Studies pretty consistently show things like improved time to exhaustion, reduce oxygen costs during moderate exercise, even faster recovery when people consume beet juice.
But it's not just for athletes, I gather.
Oh, absolutely not. That same vasodilation effect, it's powerful for just general cardiovascular health. There was a landmark study cited in the material showing that drinking about 250 milliliters, like a cup, of beetroot juice daily reduced systolic blood pressure by, on average, 7 to 8 milliarchy in healthy adults.
Wow, 7 to 8 points just from juice. That's pretty compelling.
Yeah, it is significant, from just one dietary addition.
And the sources implied, I think, that consistency is important with beets, not just a one-off drink before a race.
Yes, it seems your body sort of adapts and gets better at the conversion process over time. And while juices, concentrated whole beets, cooked or raw powders, even pickled beets can offer benefits.
Yeah.
You just need to be a bit mindful of the sugar content maybe in juice or even whole beets if that's a concern for you.
Right, okay. So leafy greens and beets are kind of the headline acts for that nitrate pathway. Are there other foods that help out with NO, maybe through different routes?
Yeah, definitely. Several others contribute. Celery, carrots, radishes. They also contain nitrates, though usually in lower concentrations than the greens or beets.
What about watermelon? That one kind of surprised me, seeing it on the list.
Watermelon. It supports NO, but differently. It's really rich in an amino acid called L-citrulline.
Okay.
And your body takes that L-citrulline and very efficiently converts it into L-arginine. Remember L-arginine?
Yeah, that was the precursor for the first NO pathway, the one inside the blood vessels.
Exactly. So watermelon isn't providing the nitrates directly, but it's giving your body the building blocks for that other production line. It's quite clever.
That is clever. So it's supporting the other pathway.
Mm-hmm. And then pomegranates offer yet another angle. They are just packed with these potent antioxidants and polyphenols.
Right.
Now, these compounds don't necessarily create more NO, but what they seem to do is help protect the NO your body does produce from being broken down too quickly by oxidative stress. They essentially extend its lifespan in the body.
Oh, so they're like bodyguards for the nitric oxide molecule.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. Garlic also makes the list. It contains sulfur compounds that appear to stimulate NO production and also offer some protective antioxidant effects, too.
And, good news for some, dark chocolate makes an appearance.
In moderation, yes.
Yeah.
Dark chocolate, specifically the kind with a high cacao percentage, usually, 70% or more, contains flavonoids. And these have been shown to support NO production and also improve endothelial function, the health of that blood vessel lining where the first pathway happens.
Okay, great. So we've got a solid lineup of foods that can boost NO. Now let's look at the flip side. What foods or habits actively work against healthy nitric oxide levels? The sources were pretty clear on one major culprit.
Yeah, this is a really critical point and one that's often missed, I think. Processed meats are highlighted as major offenders.
So we're talking bacon, sausages, hot dogs, deli meats.
Exactly, those kinds of things. They often contain added synthetic sodium nitrates or nitrates, primarily used as preservatives.
And it's the combination.
Right.
With other stuff in those foods that seems to be the issue, not just the nitrates themselves.
Precisely. While plants package their nitrates safely with all those antioxidants we mentioned, in processed meats, these synthetic compounds, especially when they're cooked at high temperatures,
Like grilling or frying.
yeah, they can react with amino acids in the meat to form compounds called nitrosamines, and there are health concerns around those. But even setting that aside, the studies discussed in the sources suggest that regular consumption of processed meats actively impairs your body's own ability to produce NO, even from the healthy nitrates you do eat from vegetables.
Wow. Okay, so they don't just, lack the good stuff.
Yeah.
They actually sabotage the system itself.
That's the key takeaway from the material, I think. The high sodium content often found in them can damage the endothelial cells, those cells lining the blood vessels that produce NO via the L-arginine pathway. And the saturated fats, plus other harmful compounds like AGs, advanced glycation end products that form during processing, they create inflammation, and that further shuts down NO synthesis.
Yeah, the research cited suggested that people who eat a lot of processed meat tend to have lower baseline NO levels anyway. And they also see less of a benefit when they do eat nitrate-rich vegetables.
It's like pouring water into that garden hose we talked about while someone else is actively pinching it shut further down the line.
Right.
You can add the healthy nitrates, but the processed meat is actively working against the fundamental NO system. So the takeaway isn't necessarily to avoid all meat, but it's really about drastically reducing or ideally eliminating those processed varieties and choosing fresh, unprocessed options instead.
Okay, that makes sense. So diet is clearly foundational here. But the sources also emphasize that lifestyle factors are huge players in the NO story, too.
Absolutely. And one that might surprise some people is oral health.
Ah, because of those bacteria on the tongue again.
Precisely. Remember that second pathway, the nitrate-nitrate NOA1? It relies heavily on those specific beneficial bacteria on your tongue to do that first conversion step. And overusing harsh antiseptic or antibacterial mouthwash can just decimate these helpful microbes. And if you do that, you severely hinder your ability to utilize the nitrates you eat from your food for NO production.
Wow. That's a really powerful connection, and that's probably overlooked a lot.
Yeah.
Using certain mouthwashes could be directly interfering with your body's NO levels.
These sources certainly strongly suggest that's the case. What else? Exercise is another fascinating factor.
It seems kind of intuitive that exercise would be good for blood flow and therefore good for NO.
It is, yeah. Regular physical activity definitely stimulates NO production. It does this by increasing blood flow, which causes what's called shear stress on the blood vessel walls, and that basically signals them to make more NO. However, really intense exercise can also temporarily use up or deplete NO stores. Which is why the timing of nitrate-rich food intake, like having that beetroot juice maybe a couple of hours before a hard workout, can be particularly beneficial for performance.
Right, to sort of top up the tank beforehand.
Exactly.
And then there's the less avoidable factor. It's getting older.
Yeah. Unfortunately, nitric oxide production does naturally decline as we age. And it starts relatively early, as you mentioned. This just makes consciously supporting it through diet and lifestyle even more crucial as the years go by.
And things like stress, not sleeping well. I imagine those don't help this delicate system either.
No, they're definitely detrimental.
Yeah.
Chronic stress, inadequate sleep, they both increase inflammation and oxidative stress throughout the body. And both of those things directly impair NO synthesis and its function. So prioritizing quality sleep is really vital for your body's repair mechanisms, including those involved in making and using NO. And, it's also worth noting certain medications can impact NO levels too. That's something to be aware of and maybe discuss with a healthcare provider if it's relevant.
So it really is a whole picture. The food, the exercise, stress, sleep, even, seemingly small habits like which mouthwash you use.
It's all interconnected.
Speaking of habits, the sources mentioned timing might matter for certain benefits. You touched on the exercise part.
Yeah, especially if the main goal is, say, performance enhancement from nitrate-rich foods like beet juice. Consuming them about 2 to 3 hours before you exercise seems to be the sweet spot. It allows time for those nitrates to go through the conversion process and for NO levels to peak in the bloodstream right when you need them.
Okay.
But for just general day-to-day cardiovascular support, simply incorporating these foods regularly throughout the day provides those consistent baseline benefits. You don't need to be quite as precise with timing.
And combining strategies seems smart too, right? Like getting nitrates from greens and beets, but also L-citrulline from watermelon, hitting both pathways.
Absolutely. A mixed approach makes a lot of sense because you're leveraging both production pathways. You could think of like a big salad with lots of different greens, maybe some chopped beets sprinkled on top, a side of watermelon for dessert, maybe use a garlic-infused vinaigrette.
Nice.
You're hitting multiple angles there to support NO.
What about freshness? Does that matter for the nitrate content in vegetables?
That's a good question. The sources suggest that, yeah, vegetables tend to have higher nitrate levels when they're fresh compared to ones that have been stored for a long time.
Okay.
If getting fresh isn't always practical, frozen vegetables are often a really good second choice. They're typically flash frozen very soon after harvest, which helps preserve a lot of the nutrient content, including nitrates.
Good tip. And the sources also touched briefly on supplements, I recall.
They did. And the consensus seems to be that while dietary sources should always be the foundation, you can't out-supplement a poor diet. Targeted supplementation can be considered as a supportive tool. This might be particularly relevant for some people, maybe those who struggle to consistently eat enough nitrate-rich foods, or perhaps individuals with increased needs due to age, certain health conditions, or maybe very intense physical training.
And based on the material, what would you look for in a quality supplement for NO support?
Ideally, you'd look for supplements that maybe address multiple aspects of NO support. So that could mean things like concentrated sources of natural nitrates, like a standardized beetroot extract, or maybe precursors for the L-arginine pathway, like L-arginine itself, or perhaps more effectively L-citrulline.
Okay.
And potentially including antioxidants could be beneficial too to help protect the NO that's produced, like we talked about with pomegranates. Looking for standardized extracts usually helps ensure you're getting a reliable, consistent dose of the active compounds.
So again, supplements are there as potential support, not as a replacement for getting the diet and lifestyle factors right first.
Precisely. Yeah. They work best when they complement those fundamental habits, not try to replace them.
Okay, great. So let's try and distill all of this down. If someone listening wants a practical takeaway, maybe an action plan based on everything we've covered from these sources, what would that look like?
Okay. First step. Start with your plate. Make those nitrate-rich vegetables a non-negotiable part of your daily intake. Aim for generous servings of leafy greens, try to vary the types you eat, and find ways to work in beets or maybe beet juice a few times a week.
And crucially, consciously reduce or ideally eliminate processed meats.
Yeah.
Remember, it's not just about adding the good stuff. It's really important to remove the things that actively undermine the whole system.
Absolutely critical point. Then you look at the lifestyle pillars. Maintain good oral hygiene, but maybe reconsider using those harsh antibacterial mouthwashes daily. Get consistent exercise that you enjoy. Prioritize getting enough restful sleep. And find healthy strategies to manage stress.
Right. And then maybe consider targeted high-quality supplements if you feel you need that extra support based on your own circumstances, but only after building that solid foundation first.
Exactly. And, pay attention to how you feel. Things like improved energy levels, maybe better exercise tolerance, potentially better circulation. These can be subtle signs that your efforts are starting to have a positive impact. You don't necessarily need to chase specific NO measurements. Focus on the process, the habits.
It's really not about finding some magic pill or quick fix, is it? It sounds like it's about building sustainable, long-term habits.
That's exactly it. It's a long-term investment in a molecule that is just fundamental to so many critical bodily processes. And the really powerful synergy here, which came through again and again in the sources, is that the foods and the habits that support nitric oxide, whole, unprocessed plant foods, regular movement, stress reduction, good sleep, they are precisely the same things that support your overall health and vitality across the board.
It's true. Focusing on NO might be a specific lens to look through, but it leads you right back to those core principles of well-being that we hear about all the time. The science here is compelling, the foods involved are pretty accessible, the lifestyle changes are beneficial for countless other reasons. The invitation to act on it is definitely there.
Yeah, the understanding of nitric oxide is still growing, of course, but its central importance, and our ability to actually influence it through these relatively simple daily choices. That's a really clear message from all this material.
So as you finish listening to this deep dive, maybe here's a final provocative thought to carry with you. Just take a moment to ponder the profound interconnectedness of what might seem like small, routine daily choices. Something as simple as the kind of mouthwash you pick up or what you decide to have for lunch today can have a real, tangible impact on a fundamental molecule like nitric oxide, which in turn affects your blood flow, your energy levels, your brain function. So the question to mull over is, what other simple, maybe currently overlooked daily habits might be having similarly significant yet hidden impacts on the core functions of your body? Really think about the cumulative power of those small, consistent choices you make every day.